Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Talking Bullion. I've got a pretty exciting video to do today. I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time. It's probably the most intriguing video I've ever done. I put a lot of research into this, been studying it for a while, mostly because I have a big interest in it. And what we're going to take a look at is how rare is junk silver, or constitutional silver, or 90% silver. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to consistently refer to it as junk silver. Now I know, if anybody knows it's me that it's not junk, okay? That's how people refer to it. That's how I'm going to refer to it. And we're just going to keep that theme throughout the video just to be consistent. So I got a lot of good information for you here. So why don't we go ahead and take a look. Alright, I had to get out my props, I had to get out my quarters, my dimes, my halves. These are my guardhouse boxes that I just absolutely love. Good for storage, good to put away. Awfully darn heavy though, I can tell you that. And maybe, just maybe, we'll check out a few of these rolls and get into them a little bit and take a look because there's some cool stuff in here. But most of you know what junk silver is. I'll put up a few videos along the way, kind of flash some great pictures I had from the times when I bought these things and put them into the rolls. If you go back to my videos from a year and a half, 2 years ago, you'll see that I bought a lot of the stuff for a really, really good price. Man, it'd be great to get it for that price again. But the times have sure changed, haven't they? I'll tell you. What is it, $6, $7, $8 an ounce over spot now to buy this stuff? I mean, just really, really out of control. But it's about supply and demand, right? One of the beautiful things about junk silver is it's not being made anymore. The only way you can buy it is if somebody decides to sell it, like me, right? If I were to sell this stuff, then become available. But if everybody decided to hold on to it, you wouldn't be able to pick it up. So it's something you always have to remember. And what we're going to talk about today, though, is how rare is it? How much is out there? It's really a question that can never be answered directly because nobody really knows for sure, right? But let's go through a little bit of research that I did, and I got some pretty good sources. A lot, some of it's speculation because, again, nobody knows for sure. But if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered, a time or two in the past, just how much of this stuff is out there. Because a lot was destroyed. We know it's still being destroyed now, maybe not so much anymore with the value that dealers are getting for it, but when things return to normal, it's going to get melted. I'm almost certain of that. So there's a book that came out in 1983 called The Big Silver Melt. It's published by Henry Merton. Now I've tried to look for this book and I can't seem to find it. A couple places I found it said they wanted $400 or $500 for it, so not really sure what's going on with that. But I did find some excerpts from it and some really good information from it. So Henry wrote about the silver melt of the 1960s, and he provided some really good data on the melting during those years. And he claims about 1.24 million ounces of U.S. coins were melted between 1966 and 1969. 1.24 million ounces of U.S. coins. That's a lot of ounces, folks. And he says that's about 65% of every silver coin minted between 1916 and 1964. So Henry's claims in this book is that in these few years from 66 to 69, about 65% of all the silver coins that were minted between 1916 and 1964 were destroyed through the melting process by sending them to the smelters. And Henry continues on his book. He says at that time, silver was $1.29 an ounce, and melting silver coins was very profitable. Merton was a, quote, burner, and melted scores of $1,000 bags of face value silver coins into large ingots and then sold them overseas. Collectors will be interested to know that somehow Merton claimed to remember ballpark figures concerning exactly what coins and dates he melted. And according to Merton, because of the melt mintages, the 1958 quarter is rarer than we think. Apparently, the $1,000 bags were searched and rare dates would be picked before going to the melting pot. Well, that's good. At least they looked through them, right? As for quarters, only Washington quarters would be melted. All standing Liberty coins would be set aside and sold to dealers. Many of the dates Merton claims to have melted in huge numbers are from the late 1950s and early 1960s. The book is apparently legit, and the curator of the A&S wrote the preface. As for the melt numbers, who really knows? Now, in a Coin Week article written by K.W. Callahan, he says, according to Merton, when it comes to dimes in particular, there were over 656,000 bags, each worth $1,000, burned by the illegal melters in the United States Treasury during the Big Silver Melt. The bag count on quarters was nearly 705,000, while around 373,000 bags of half dollars were reduced to bars of silver. So listen to those numbers, folks. There was some serious melting of junk silver going on back at this time. Now, I'm sure there was a lot made, but there was certainly a lot melted back down again. Merton utilizes information gleaned from clandestine smelters that included statistical mixes from randomly selected bagged silver coins. In turn, he extrapolates, based on the quantities of dates and mints in those random bags, the numbers out over the hundreds of thousands of bags melted. And as a final note, bear in mind the Big Silver Melt was published in 1983. Just how many more of these remaining coins have disappeared in the meantime? Alright, so I'm going to continue on with a little bit more very interesting data. But before I do that, why don't we take a look at just a few of these things, right? We've got all this beautiful coinage sitting here. It's hard to get out of these boxes when it's packed tight. Let's take a look at some quarters here. And these are all just your regular, standard, circulated. I have a few BU versions in there, but BU tubes in there. But yeah, these are just awesome, standard, beautiful, beautiful quarters, right? You guys see what the angle I have now? Let's put them down there. Pretty nice, huh? Zoom in a little bit just so we can see them in all their glory. Pretty cool. Got ourselves some quarters down here. Alright, zoom back out. So why don't we take a look at a row of dimes. One thing I think that's pretty interesting here I want to show you. And for those who don't really put their junk silver into tubes, I want to show you the difference here and where. You can see here we have Roosevelts. Roosevelts, didn't tend to get circulated as much because of, gotta get my working. But you can see here this Roosevelt roll, see how it goes almost to the very top of the coin tube. Look at these mercuries. Look at how low they are in there. Look at how much space is between the two. Alright? These both have 50 coins in them. But look at the wear on the mercury dimes compared to the Roosevelts. Pretty wild, huh? That's how much silver is lost in there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get some mercs into the pile. Ooh-wee. Haven't dumped any junk silver out in a while. Rosies and now some mercs. Oh man, I love those mercury dimes. Those things are awesome. Do another quick little zoom. Yeah, so we can see all that beauty in there. Quarters, some dimes. Oh yeah. So that's the deal with some dimes and some quarters. And again, I think the wear is pretty remarkable on those mercuries. And let me see if I can get out a roll of these. These halves are really hard to get out of here because they're just tightly packed into there. So let's take a look at some halves. Got ourselves some JFKs. See, there's a little bit of wear on these. If you get the BU ones, they'll be right to the top, just like the dimes were, but these have a little bit of a gap in there. So yeah, love the JFKs. Over here in the rest of my bucket, I've got Franklin's, I got Walker's over here. I got a whole mix of them all. Let's put some JFKs down here too, get them into the mix. Not too worried if these are BUs, I probably wouldn't dump them on the pile, but this stuff's well circulated, and so I'm not real concerned about them, banging around a little bit, that's okay. So yeah, so now we got some nice 1964 $half, huh? That a beautiful coin or what? I've always loved the back of this coin too. Just love that eagle. Great representation. Love it. And the Mercury's always been a favorite design for a lot of people. Very nice. I've never went through these to find out if I have any key dates or anything. I keep saying I'm going to do that one day, but I never do. And we got the Roosevelt in great condition. A lot of them are. And then, of course, our quarter. I'm getting a little sidetracked here. That's what happens when you get out the junk silver in front of talking bullion. He gets all distracted from what he's supposed to be doing. Very nice. Very nice. I'll put this stuff away later. We'll keep it out there for the rest of our video so we can have a nice look at some beautiful U.S. coinage. Alright. So I'm going to continue on because I've got some more great data for you. And I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am because I think this is pretty relevant. And I really think that this stuff is a lot rarer than we think it is. But let me continue on. Now I'm reading from a PCGS article. And this article was written around 2000. It can still be found on their site. According to this article, it says a lot of the melting took place in 1979 and 1980. Now this is another time period, right? Merton was writing about a time back in the 60s. There's another big melt that happened in 79 and 80. And of course, this was fairly close to time with the Hunt brothers, which that's something else we'll talk about some other time. But this article says a lot of the melting took place in 1979, 1980, when silver bullion soared to an all-time high of $50 an ounce. At that point, common date silver coins were worth far more as metal than as money or collectibles. Even scarcer items could be melted at a profit. So because silver gone up so much, even somebody had maybe a rare, silver quarter was cashing it in to get the value of the spot price off it because it went up so much. There is, of course, no way of determining with precision the number of coins from each year that were melted. However, it's amply clear that the numismatic losses were substantial. Some might even say staggering. And the long-term implications are enormous. So again, this was written in 2000. How many coins have been melted since that time? 2000's 22 years ago. Clearly there's been melting continuing to happen with our junk silver. So the article continues about a 1985 interview with coin dealers. Now this is in quotes. "Those coin melts probably hurt us more than we will ever know," said Leon E. Hendrickson, proprietor of Silvertown in Winchester, Indiana, a dealer that has dealt extensively in bullion-related coins over the years. "They destroyed a lot of our, quote, seed coins, the coins that got people started, and put a lot of collectors out of business." So that's Leon here is from Silvertown, which is still in business today. Hendrickson himself was deeply involved in the silver melts, buying huge quantities of silver coins from customers and selling them in turn to refiners. "I was part of it," he remarked, "so I can't point the finger at anybody else. I was just as guilty as anybody else. But that was the way everybody operated then. That was just the way the coin dealers had to do business." Hendrickson calculated that during 1979 and 1980, Silvertown alone processed thousands of bags of silver coins that were destined for refiners' melting pots. The late Joel Cohn of New York, a coin dealer who played a central role in the great silver melts, totally agreed with Hendrickson's assessment, and in 1985 he shared his concerns. Cohn estimated that of all the silver coins produced by the United States Mint, only about 1/4 survived the ongoing melts. He confided that he himself sold refiners $400 million worth of fabricated silver, mostly silver coins, during the one-year period from July 1st, 1979 to June 30th, 1980. And, he commented, other guys are doing the same thing. So I'm just going to take a break here for a minute, folks, and just say this. You talk about a big melt. This stuff has been melted for decades. You know, they quit making it in 1964 was the last year. And look at all the stuff that has happened since then. So I don't know why we don't realize how rare the stuff really is. It's almost like, you know, gold and silver, just their spot prices stay low or lower than we think, when in reality, we know it should be more. So I'll continue on. All the low-end silver stuff got melted, he declared. Any coins that would bring $35 an ounce or more at retail, there was no other point but to melt them. I remember one day melting 100 bags of 1963 Franklin halves, he related, and looking back, I'm glad I did. The most they bring today is maybe $6 a piece, and I guess at that point I must have gotten $13 or $14 each for them as, quote, dead items. Silver dollars survived to a far greater extent than the smaller silver coins, Cohn reported. Nonetheless, they too suffered serious losses, he said. I personally melted a lot of uncirculated dollars. When silver went so high, they were worth more money dead than alive. Hendrickson suggested that with silver dollars, at least, the melts may have had a positive aspect. They helped us get rid of a lot of the garbage dollars, he observed. I say we got rid of 75% of the cull dollars, and that was all to the good. It pruned the supply of dollars, so to speak, and made the ones that were left more collectible. With the other series, though, the melts went way beyond pruning. Everything was affected across the board. With Franklin halves, for instance, I hate to say how big of a majority were melted, but I know the percentage was very high. Something else seems clear regarding the melts themselves. While common day coins and circulated coins made up the bulk of the items that were melted, scarcer ones frequently bit the dust as well. Although they had premium value as the collector's items, many were worth even more as mere metal, and bullion prices shot through the roof. Even many silver-proof coins were melted. For example, so were certain semi-key silver coins in lesser grades. Now and then, the melting pots also claimed materials that were worth a great deal more. At the height of the hysteria, there was simply no way the dealers could examine every single coin that came their way, and as a result, some rarities surely slipped through their hands. So in that case, they were lost to the hobby forever. Jim Carr, a longtime dealer from Pelham, New Hampshire, says, on the contrary, key coins were almost always kept, and this led to one of the most fascinating and most significant after effects of the melts, a total rearrangement of relative rarity levels in every modern series of U.S. silver coins. Essentially, Carr observed, the key coins now are common since they're the ones that were saved, and the formerly common coins are now rare since most of them were melted. So let me just take a minute to say, do you understand what they're saying here? Because they saved what they considered key dates back then from being melted, those became the common dates, because the ones that we thought we had so many of were sent away to the refiners to be melted. Those could now be our key dates. It's a very interesting thought to think about that, and how maybe some of these things here that are just being sold as standard, regular junk silver, circulated silver, a lot of these could be key dates now because of all the big melting that happened to this stuff. Very, very interesting. And I continue. Carr didn't dispute this at the time, and he feels the same today, but he does see a silver lining, the fact that melts ended when they did. He's convinced that if they hadn't, the stock of silver coins could have been wiped out completely. When silver hit $50 an ounce, I would say that 98% of the silver coins in existence were committed to smelting houses, he confided. If the price had been maintained, most everything would have been lost. Fortunately, he added, the refiners had a 2 to 3 month backlog, and as silver dropped in value, they withdrew a lot of the coins, Even so, it's scary just thinking of what might have happened. So that's some very interesting information coming from this 1985 interview with coin dealers that came from this PCGS article in 2000. So a little bit more research. I found one person claiming significant research, that he had done significant research, but I have not been able to verify it. But he said that he's been researching and collecting data for about 6 years now, and this would have been a few years ago that he made these comments, and that he was compiling a book on his own that suggests that between 7 and 8% of the silver Roosevelt dimes are all that remain. He suggests that since 1969, 70% or so of the remaining common date silver has been melted. Much of it was melted when silver prices were run up by the Hunt brothers in the early 80s, and some of it is still being melted today. So he makes the same claims that these other people did. But the reason I brought this up is because I just wanted to point out that he claims in his research that only about 7 or 8% of the silver Roosevelt dimes remain. Of course, no way to prove that or confirm that, but interesting take anyway, right? Alright, so another thing I want to point out when it comes to melting junk silver is a YouTube video that Daniel from Coin Help You did a little while ago. Now, most of you, if you're in the YouTube community, you're very familiar with Daniel. He's got a great channel, really doing well nowadays, called Coin Help You. He's a dealer. He owns a coin shop in Ohio, and he puts out some fantastic information. He put out a video a while back called Why Dealers Melt Coins. Is It Illegal? And of course, melting 90% silver today is not illegal. There are a few U.S. coins that it is, but these 90% coins, unfortunately, can be melted legally. And in this video, Daniel talks about why a dealer would go ahead and melt junk silver, between inventory and the cost to store it, to count it, to maybe take pictures of it, to put it in a catalog, to do everything they need to do would cost them money. He can go ahead and sell to a refiner, get his money almost immediately back for it. And so this is why dealers continue to melt 90%. Now, in today's world, they're probably not doing that right now because they can make so much off it just selling it over the counter. But I believe when things get back to normal, like they were just a few short years ago, they're going to get back to melting this 90%. All right, so what's all this mean? Let's do a summary here of everything that we've went through. How rare is junk silver, really? I mean, I don't know, you don't know, but I suspect it's much more rare than we could ever imagine. And I suspect if it ever comes to light or somehow they can determine that, we're going to start paying a lot more for it. In my humble opinion, I think it's pretty rare. I think it's pretty rare at this point. But we will never know. How are we ever going to find out? If they sent out a survey asking everybody in America to write down how much junk silver they have, I mean, nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to respond to that. Nobody's going to tell people how much of the stuff they have. It's none of their business how much I have. And I wouldn't want to reveal that to anybody. So if I were you, even if times get a little tough and maybe you need some cash, I would avoid selling your junk silver. I'd try my best to keep it. So I really do think it's rarer than we think. And it is an important part of my stack. It should be an important part of your stack. And I really think that this stuff has some value. Has some good value. Silver bullion, they can make like millions and millions of silver eagles. These, Scottsdale pumps out bars. All these people can just really pump out as much as they want to. There's no limitation to how much they can produce. Limitation here, folks. There's only so much produced, and it's being destroyed still every day. So I would just say, and I've said this in many of my other videos, that junk silver is a great silver to stack, and it's an important part of your stack. Some of the reasons it's recognized worldwide. Everybody around the world knows what a U.S. dime looks like, knows what a U.S. quarter looks like. After all, this stuff is recognized everywhere. You won't have to convince anybody what you have if you have to do something with it at some point, whether it's bartering, whether it's selling, whether it's trading, whatever you want to do. There's no explanation necessary on what it is that you are holding in your hand. Oh, love that coin. Look at that cartwheel on that thing. Okay, anyway. It's rarely, if ever, counterfeited. Now I know there's been a few out there, but it's usually one of the more expensive coins. They can put a D mint mark on a mercury dime. They can do some pretty creative things. So a lot of the counterfeiting comes from just trying to add things or manipulate a number on the coin to make it look like it's something that it's not. But nobody takes the time to make a Roosevelt dime mold and pump out billions of them to throw into circulation as counterfeits. It's just not happening. So unlike silver bullion that can be easily counterfeited, they can stamp whatever they want to. In America, we're not required to have that stuff tested like in the UK. So somebody can just throw out a silver bar, stamp 999 on it, sell it to you, and that could be pretty easy to do. Junk silver is really going to be great in a crap hits the fan situation. So, if you ever need this for bartering, this is your perfect fractional silver, right? If you buy fractional 10 ounces, you're going to pay a fortune for them. These things here, right here, you get yourself 4 dimes, get yourself $2.50, got yourself $1.40 there. There's your ounce of silver right there. That's an ounce of silver, right? So if somebody wants to sell you something, they only want half ounce. You can give them 7 dimes and be a half ounce of silver, right? So yeah, any form of $1.40 is your ounce of silver. So I really think in certain situations, bartering, things are rough, that this is your fractional silver. You're going to be really happy you have it. And as this video has clearly tried to say, this stuff is much more rare than we think it is. And I really think we need to respect it. I think we need to appreciate it. And I think we need to hang on to it. And that is my opinion of junk silver and the rarity of it and how we ought to be getting it, keeping it, and storing it as part of our stack. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And always remember, let's keep talking bullion.